What's going on, everybody? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Glow Season 3 on Netflix right now. Chris Lowell hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Back here in New York City, where it all began.
Home sweet home, man. I love it here.
Parsons has been the deal with you, doing photography. Now you're
I didn't make the I didn't make this ridiculous. Well, I guess I'm not a gorgeous lady of wrestling, which is fair. Mark's not up here either, so it's fine.
But you guys have had your impact on the show, and why don't you take me back to when you were first presented with this whole wacky world? And
yeah, so it was funny. It was actually, I read the pilot, which was so brilliant, but my character's not in the pilot. So when they were bringing me in, I gave single-handedly like the worst audition of my career, which is saying a lot because I've given a lot of really, really bad auditions. But I think I just completely misread the tone of the show. So I went in with this very sincere, it was like I was doing Robert Redford and All the Presidents.
Oh,
Man.
wow.
Like very grounded, subtle work.
And it's like quite the opposite.
And they were like, no. They're like, think like Biff from Back to the Future.
And you're like,
I was like, okay. And they're like, do you want to try it right now? And I just crashed and burned in the worst way. It was like trying to deliver like a scene, but now I'm forgetting the lines and there's just beads of sweat pouring down my face. And I remember leaving and calling my reps and just being like, well, that didn't happen, so let's just move on from that. And then Liz and Carly, the creators of the show, were fans of mine from a play that I had done at Ars Nova a few years prior called Jacuzzi, and they convinced me that if I could do that character, then I could play Bash on Glow. And so I came in the third episode, and it's intimidating. It's an insane group of actors, and they're all, at that point, they'd been working together, and all of the girls trained for a month prior to shooting, doing all sorts of wrestling training. So they were thick as thieves by the time I got there. And it's a real testament to how much a family they are, because they brought me in immediately and made me kind of part of the team, and then we just kind of were off to the races ever since then. And it is so much fun. It's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. I mean, it is a really unique experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is probably completely different from anything you've ever done before.
Yeah, and it's period, which is fun, and it's such a ridiculous period that they really lean into. And then the thing that the show, I think, does really, really well is, I don't really even understand how it works because it's such a small target to hit, is they really skirt this line between full-blown, wild, over-the-top, broad comedy and circumstance. I mean, look what they're wearing.
Yeah.
And then this very grounded, real, beautiful, kind of like in the ring, out of the ring counter lifestyle that you get to see, and to be able to play in both those worlds is just, normally it's all one or all the other, and it's nice to kind of be able to dip your toe in both. You don't get that opportunity very often.
So what have been some of the challenges associated for you with the part?
I think it's interesting. Challenges is like kind of a tricky word, right? Because sometimes like the challenges are great. Like for me, I think finding that balance, like knowing how quickly you can transition from being totally over the top to, very, very grounded and realistic and human, is like kind of finding that balance can be a little tricky sometimes. And then otherwise, I always want to get in the ring. I always want to be one of the wrestlers. You know what I mean? Watching what they do is so stunning. And I'm the announcer on the show, so I'm always sitting there watching them do these like sunset flips and like power bombs off the ropes, and half the time my reactions are totally genuine. I'm just sort of agog the whole time. It's insane. So yeah, I think the challenges have just been, and then not breaking. I laugh way too easily. I'm not very professional when it comes to that. I'm the quickest to break.
You're the first one?
I'm the first one to go. And once it starts,
everybody's doing it?
It's over. Well, not everybody's doing it. I'm doing it, and I can't help myself. So that's usually something that I have to kind of keep in check.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And they're long days on set, so you kind of need that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. For me, when I show up on set, I'm very much, I go find my own little area and sort of stay in my space by myself while we're shooting, because I think if I get too conversational, or if we start joking about anything and then go into shoot, I can't keep it together.
You can't lock in.
So I just sort of like, when I'm at work, I'm very much like kind of an island, and save as much as I can for when the cameras are rolling. because otherwise I'm useless.
So whether you watch wrestling or not, those announcers are always ridiculously over the top. So how difficult was it to kind of nail that down?
Yeah, so I'd never seen really, wrestling was something that I'd missed it.
Yeah,
right?
it was the same sort of thing for me.
My brother was a diehard wrestling fan, but I never really understood it. And I really didn't understand the importance of the announcer in those things. And so when we watched the documentary, which you can see, which is also insane, about like the sort of real life people that this is based on. And the announcer on the show is this guy named David McLean, who is just a die-hard wrestling fanboy. And one of the things I loved and learned a lot from watching him is just the level of camp but also genuine fascination and love in his announcing, which is something that I tried to bring to my character when he is doing the announcing of the show, is to really just lean into like the kind of, is sort of realizing that I'm essentially one of these crazy caricatures as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to kind of live in that space.
Totally. And you've lived in different spaces, especially with your theater background too, and you're playing with people who have been on the stage before. Like, you guys have probably been pushed creatively, but this is like a whole different type of challenge, it feels like.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways what's nice is that almost all of the writers and creators come from a theater background. So I think a lot of times when you're doing film and television, the scenes are a lot choppier.
Right.
You know, a long scene on a TV show is like 1.5 pages. And what I really enjoy about our show is that they will let us sit in a scene that takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, like to really just kind of let things marinate between characters, and to really give, it's just nice to be, you know, to come across scenes where you have like a real place that you start and a very different place that you end, and you have plenty of time to like kind of feel out that arc. You know, I just think that's kind of a genuine gift to be given, especially on a show. You normally don't have the time to do it, and Liz and Carly really create circumstances where they let the characters kind of just exist in the space for a while, uninterrupted, which is a really fun way to play.
Yeah, you need to work through some stuff.
Yeah,
and I was going to say, it's rare because everybody's focused on budget, nailing in a couple shots, to actually have some time to work through it.
Yeah, exactly. And also for it to not be so choppy, for it to be really, you know, it's I mean, there's like 16 or 17 of us on the show.
Yeah.
And for it's such a character study, which is really nice. So so the priority of the show is the kind of inner workings of these different characters, and not necessarily the plot. The plot doesn't sort of take all priority. It's kind of like what we are doing and our mannerisms and the stories that we're telling get to kind of take center stage, which is nice. You just don't always get that, you know?
Absolutely. So I was telling you off camera, I've seen Alison Brie in a couple different things.
Yes.
This is definitely different from those things.
Yes.
So what's it been like working with her?
Yeah, I mean, I think Allie is, one of the most refreshing things about her is that I think she really is just she really just loves the work, and she loves to work, and she's, you know, the lead of any series, I think, kind of sets the tone for the rest of the show, and if you have a difficult person in that lead role, it reverberates. And similarly, when you have someone as game and playful and happy to come to work as Allie, it trickles down. Everybody else kind of absorbs that same mentality. So it's wonderful. I mean, she works harder than anybody. She's so freaking gorgeous. And she just shows up on set and immediately has no humility or has no pride about, has so much humility about just being, you know, everyone else is getting all glammed up, and Allie's like never in makeup, and she's got that ridiculous perm that they put her in, and I don't know, she said this one thing I remember last season that I really just thought was such a beautiful way to kind of approach the show, which she was like, this is a love letter to my body. You know, she's like, I work so hard on this show, and we are throwing each other around, and I've never been in better shape than I am right now. And I just think this is sort of, she's like, it's just a love letter to my body and all of our bodies on this show and what we're able to do with them. And it's just a really beautiful thing to hear.
Yeah,
you know, I can talk about how much I love her for days.
That's awesome. And I feel like you and Marin kind of have unique perspective being able to see these women up close. So what's it been like for you guys to kind of learn about this world and just see what these women do?
Are you talking about in the show or off? Yeah, either one, yeah. I mean, Mark is his own brand of crazy, you know? And what's fun about him is you know, his sort of brand is being this kind of like grumpy troll. It's sort of like how he approaches the world. And yet, he's realistically just this kind of, he's a big softy, you know? And what's fun about him being on set and watching his dynamic with all the girls is, I remember his first season, I think he was really trying to lean into the into the ogre.
Yeah.
And you just would watch over the course of every episode, like everyone just not let it get to them, and if anything, just like infiltrate the Marinisms.
Absolutely.
And to the point where now he's just, I don't know. I think he's like he's just always a fun presence to have on set, because it's just like, it's like this cranky guy who just can't help but like love all of his like nieces or something. You know what I mean? He's like a cranky uncle who just like can't help but sort of fall in love with these like people that are just going bananas all around him.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So when you think about other stuff in your career, what else stands out to you? I mean, you've done some cool movies. You did The Help.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You know, it's funny. I kind of realized this just because I've been getting this question a lot with Glow, because Glow is this show, this very like women-heavy set, and so people are kind of have been asking, you know, like what's it like being on a show with all these women, and I kind of realized that. In a really wonderful way, most of my career I've worked with and for women, whether it's something like The Help, or I was on a Shonda Rhimes show, Private Practice, for years, and that was like a show created by women, starring women, and so for me, it's an environment that I'm used to and very grateful to be a part of. I mean, I grew up with women, I was raised by women, and so for me, I'm just, it's where I find myself the most comfortable. Like if you were to, I've been on those sort of good old boy sets, and they're awful a lot of times. You know, I mean, and I'm a guy saying that, so I can't imagine what it must be like for a woman on the, you know, being on one of those shows, on one of those sets. And so between Private Practice and Veronica Mars and The Help and this show, I just think, you know, it's an environment that I am grateful I get to work in frequently, you know?
That's a really interesting perspective, thinking about how sets used to be, and you're like, that sucks. Like, I don't want to be on this.
Those, like, this idea, you know, I think there's this concept that more opportunities for women equals less opportunities for men.
No.
And if anything, what this show, I hope, is like evidence of, certainly for me, is, you know, like I said, there's 17 people on our show, like and it's a show about women, and I very easily, or Mark could very easily be relegated to the shelves, or sort of just serve like a very one-dimensional purpose, and if anything, it's just the opposite. It's like there's still plenty of space for everybody to kind of have a voice, and I love the voice that they give me on the show, and I love to be kind of in harmony with all of these other brilliant voices.
And this show is a perfect example of that. It's like, hey, let's create this, let's open the door to it, and it's like both men and women can do their thing.
Yes,
and we can
exactly.
both cut through it, you know?
And all of us can have plenty of epic moments and brilliant storylines and wonderful like moments of heroism and tragedy, and you know, it's a big space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Plenty of time.
Yeah, plenty of time, and a big enough landscape for enough room. There's enough room for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
So who are the people you've learned the most from?
On the show?
From the show, or just throughout the journey?
I mean, I love Betty. This one right here. I used to, and Gail are both New York actors, and I'd seen them on stage plenty of times, and they have such a, I mean, they're an intimidating presence in terms of their talent. They really can just do anything. And so for me, watching them on stage, I would always be so envious, because I would want to be working with them on stage. And so to be working with them on camera, which I think is, for both of them, like kind of newer territory. I think they're more comfortable. They have more experience on stage than they do on camera. And ironically, I have more, I think I came across as the experienced one sometimes on set, which was very flattering for me, because I like can barely talk to them. I've got such a, I'm such an admirer of theirs. So yeah, I think just watching them work, truly watching the kind of level of commitment and dedication and just really the way that you sort of, with this many actors, you can really see different tactics to finding to getting to that finish line of a moment of a performance, and everybody has very different tactics. You know, I think like someone like Allie will show up and she knows everyone's name and she jokes with everybody, and so as a result, I think she's able to know that she's loved there, and that disarms her, that allows her to be as confident as possible to give a performance that will knock everybody out of the ballpark. And then there's other actors who show up and don't want to talk to anybody because they're in the zone, and as a result, they've done, for them, it's the research that they've done prior to coming onto set has given them the confidence that when the cameras start rolling, then they're going to bring their best work. And neither of those approaches is wrong.
Right,
it's like whatever works best for them. And so it's really been nice to kind of sit back and watch these actors who I really admire have used these different approaches, kind of have like take different tools out of different toolboxes to kind of get to where they need to, and to kind of, you know, sort of take notes the whole time.
A little incubator.
Be like, oh, I gotta, maybe that would work for me, or like, definitely wouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean? It's a nice, you know, it's kind of a nice classroom to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the show yet.
Yes.
Give me the biggest reason why I need to jump into this.
Honestly, I think you really rarely come across a show that fires on all cylinders, and by that I mean the humor in it is just great, hysterical. There's like some very broad comedy and also some very quick-witted, dry humor. So the comedy element of it, I think, is just so on point and so smart. And then you also get all of these great, very grounded, not really that melodramatic moments of humanity that are really potent. And come from a real sincere place. And it's a take on Los Angeles and Las Vegas in the 80s that is, I just think, extraordinarily unique.
A wild time.
And it's a really, I think it's a great way for Liz and Carly to sort of have a commentary on women in the workplace that feels both like of a time past and also allows us to look at how little has changed or how much has changed. And I don't know, I just think it's one of the smartest shows I think I've seen. You know, I just really think it's a really brilliantly executed piece of art for this medium.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned where you started with the audition. When did you feel like you finally found a comfort zone in this role and on this show?
Pretty quickly, but only because they threw me in the deep end when I got there. I like agreed to do the job on a Friday, and on Monday I was shooting, and literally I think I was like arriving in a helicopter, you know, with like a cell phone that looks like it's like, you know, remember those old like brick cell phones, and I had a robot that like was serving everybody drugs, and I mean it was just bananas right out of the gate. And Liz and Carly, the creators of the show, really kind of pushed me to lean into whatever weirdo impulses I had, and I do remember like that first episode just going so far out there, and then having an idea like on our last day of the first episode I was shooting, and someone being like, "Well, I mean, it's a grounded show," and being like,
"You're like, really? What? What are we talking about here?
Like, have you? What have I've made another enormous mistake." But yeah, no. I think pretty quickly, and again, like the ladies on the show really just sort of surrounded me with a real sense of support and kind of a sense that anything goes, and if you make a mistake or if you fall on your face, like we're all going to fall on our faces, and it's okay, and let's just like try a bunch of things and see what sticks, and so yeah, so pretty quickly I had, I think, a firm idea of what this character was and who he was going to be, and then Liz and Carly have just continued to let it go even further and really give me a much more depth and challenging sequences and storylines that have just made the character that much more fun to play.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, man.
Chris,
thanks a lot, DJ.
So
I really appreciate it.
That's Chris. Check him out. Season 3 of Glow. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Take care.